Good evening, everyone, and welcome into this week's edition of the Bullring. Derek Diesner here with you, and during the next 30 minutes, we'll recap the week that was in Matador athletics. During tonight's show, we'll sit down with head coach Tom Minnick of the Matador football team, as well as head volleyball coach Jason Smith, as his team prepares for the national championship tournament in Casper, Wyoming. And we'll also check in with both Lady Matador and Matador basketball coaches Patrick Cunningham and Charles Harrell to see how their teams are doing as they kick off their seasons. But up next, it's time to talk Matador football with head coach Tom Minnick here on the Bullring. Welcome back into the Bullring, everyone. It's time to talk Matador football. And with that, let's welcome in head coach of your Matador football team, Tom Minnick. Coach, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk some Matador football. Now, last week you had the WSFL meetings. You went up there, and a lot of awards were presented to the AWC football team.
Yeah, we had 6 or 7 guys get first team, which is surprising. Scottsdale Mesa made out too, so it was a good day for the Matador football players.
What'd you think about Antonio Kennard being named not only the WSFL Defensive Player of the Year, but the ACCAC Defensive Player of the Year?
He deserves it. He has had a great year for us. I believe he ended up with 98 tackles on the year, and Antonio's a good football player and does a great job for us. We're hoping we get him back next year, but if we don't, I know he's going to end up somewhere really nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, what does an award like this kind of do for his future?
Well, he does it himself on the field. I mean, he's a kid that had Miami and Michigan coming out of high school, so he's going to get some big time offers when he leaves here. So we'll just have to see if he makes his grades and get out this semester or not. So
okay. Now, looking at the different lists, were you surprised at all that Tyler Rogers didn't make it?
Not surprised. The two, it's a stat-driven thing. Mm-hmm. Tyler's probably the best quarterback in the league, but he's going up against Scottsdale, who throws the ball 60 times a game. So it's tough to get those stats and be the number one quarterback.
Right.
But saying that, last year we had Tanner McAvoy, which was the number one kid too, and he didn't throw for as many yards as the Scottsdale kid. So it just depends. They were the number one team in the league, and they got the guy they wanted, and he was the player of the year. So they deserve it. Tyler's a good football player. Tyler will end up with a better scholarship than the kid from Scottsdale will. Mm-hmm. But we're happy. We're glad that we have Tyler, and Tyler does a great job for us.
Now, one of your other better players, Cody Hollister, he was named the second team for the WSFL, but then he earned first team for the ACCAC.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's a stat-driven thing. Cody had, I think, 63 receptions, and those kids from Scottsdale had, 70 and 80. When you get the ball all the time, you're going to have the stats. So it's another, like I said, stat-driven award. So, but we're proud to get Cody, what he deserved, the first team and the second team in the league.
Now, Brandon Gaynor, he got second team on the ACCAC, but did not make the WSFL list for awards. But he's really come on as this season has progressed and really has turned into your feature running back.
Yeah, he's done a great job, especially the last 4 or 5 weeks, running the ball downhill. That's what we, preach to him about, making the cuts at the second level, not the first level. And Brandon's done a great job for us and deserves it. It's probably, since I've been here, this is the first running back we haven't had first team. Wow. Since I've been here, which is kind of a shock. We're out there right now trying to find a featured running back because everybody knows we run the ball, downhill. So we got to find one and go from there.
Now, I know one of the bigger topics discussed at the meetings this past week was the playoff situation, and it sounds like everyone was pretty much all for keeping this playoff structure for next season.
It was a great experience for the kids, especially going up to Eager and playing in the dome up there in the mountains. It was great experience. So everybody's pretty much on board with it. There's one AD that was against it, but hopefully he gets overruled and we continue with the playoffs and with the WSFL championship up there in Edgar. Compare it to the SEC championship and the Big 12 championship where you're playing on a neutral site. We all want to play in the dome instead of going up to Utah and playing in the snow up there if we, at that time of the year. So especially for the Arizona schools, it makes more sense to play it in the dome.
Now let's get back to your team. Just a couple weeks away from this year's Fisher Automotive El Toro Bowl, where you will take on the Nittany Broncos. Now I know you had off last week for your team. What's in store for them this week?
We'll get back at it. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week, and start getting back in shape a little bit. I know they haven't been doing a ton of stuff, since we've had this week off, but trying to get them back into it slowly, and then come back the following week, have a couple practices the following week, and then start game week. That first week in December. So we're excited to get back. You're kind of bored of sitting around home all day and not doing anything. So, but some of the coaches, we've been hitting the recruiting trail pretty hard already, and following up with names and getting going. We got to get better as a football team to get back to that national championship. So we've been doing a lot of work with recruiting in our off time this past week.
Final question for you, Coach. Do you know the health and how Tyler Rogers is doing, and will he be ready for the Fisher Automotive El Toro Bowl?
Yeah, he'll be ready. He was out there throwing the ball the other day with Blake, and he seems like he's ready to go. Okay. And we'll be at full strength, with this big layoff and getting some kids healthy and back with us. That's a big reason why we took that drop the last couple of weeks is not having our starting quarterback hurts, right. And when you take him away, and he's probably the most valuable player on the offensive side of the ball for us, that hurts us. And we're excited about getting him back and getting him in the flow of the motion and going from there.
All right. Well, Coach, thanks so much for your time, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
All right. That was head football coach Tom Minnick here on the Bullring. It's time for us to take a break, but when we come back, it's time to talk Lady Matador Volleyball with head coach Jason Smith. Keep it locked. You're tuned in to the Bullring. Welcome back, everyone, into the Bullring. Derek Diesner back with you, and we're coming to you from the house on the campus of Arizona Western College, as I am now joined by head coach of the Lady Matador volleyball team, Jason Smith. Jason, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
The last time we spoke, it was before that big District C championship game against Redlands, and as it turns out, your team came out victorious 3-0.
Yeah, we played pretty well that night. You could just tell there was just so much nervous tension in the gym. Just from the start to the finish, both teams had it. You could feel it in the gym. It created a better environment. However, there was an awful lot of errors made by both teams that were a result of that nervous tension.
Who are some players that really stepped up and maybe even surprised you with their performance against Redlands?
I don't get surprised very much anymore because I've seen them all play well. But Taylor Price was awesome that night, blocking and hitting. Her hitting percentage was .727. That's 8 kills on 11 attempts, 0 errors, and that's the highest one we've had all season. She just kept doing every piece of information I gave her, she turned into points on the court, and it was just an outstanding performance. Gabby Diaz had a big game. Abby Noland had a big game. Amber Graham had a really nice game. She just had some errors that brought her percentage down, but she was still among the kill leaders. If you had told me that we would have gone into that match and Maria would have had a hard time, I would have been, wow, this may be a tough match for us. Josie played well. Sashi played well. Sashi defense was incredible out there. And, it was just the whole team. Everybody was out there to win.
Were you a little surprised at how well Redlands did come out and play that game, knowing that, they've had an up and down season and have had some struggles?
Well, like I said, Redlands had an up and down season because of injuries this year. They're a better team than their record showed, for sure. That's a pretty good team. That team would finish towards the top of our conference. that Puerto Rican outside was really good, but once we got into her head, she did give us some points. But we had to force her into those errors. She wasn't just going to give them to us.
Well, your team now the ACCAC champions, the Region 1 champions, and now the District C champions, and now it's on to Casper, Wyoming, and a lot of games in a short amount of time, and that'll get started this Thursday. Now you come out as the 8th seed and you open up against North Idaho College. What do you know about them?
They're very similar to us. They're definitely a 5-option offense. The difference is they are very heavy on giving the balls to their outside hitters. You know, it's probably the first time we've ever played a team that has a libero as good as ours. Okay. They're going to be a very, if you can see this match, go watch it online. This is going to be a good one. I think we're properly seeded. You know, we're 8 and 9, and that just shows how even the matchup is. I think we're slightly better than they are, but so once you get to that point, it just throw everything out, make your best game plan, bring your best game day face, and see who's really ready to play that day.
So what do you think overall of the seedings and the bracket? Do you like where your team is at?
I personally, biased, think that we might be, you know, we could move up a couple of seeds, but we didn't play any of those teams throughout the course of the year. All those other teams got to play each other just because of our locale. It's really hard for us to get up there and play different teams. North Idaho gets to play CSI in Salt Lake, you know, in their conference. You know, College of Central Florida, who's ranked just ahead of us, is playing Miami-Dade and Hillsboro, and those teams out there quite a bit. The Texas schools play each other, and we're kind of sitting out here all alone. So we need to make a splash, and we need to win some games out here at this national tournament, and hopefully we can get Central Arizona ranked next year as well as we are, and that would really help our ranking at the end.
Now, try not to look ahead, but then again, it's a 3-day tournament in bracket style. If you go on to win, you would then play the winner of the number 1 seed Blinn taking on the 16 seed Gadsden State. So have you done any advanced scouting as to what you could be facing, or are you just
Absolutely. We have to be ready. The nature of the beast is that I have to be ready for 2 matches in that day. So I have fully scouted North Idaho, and I'm probably about 50% of the way done with Blinn. I've still got a little bit of time. I'm not really scouting for Gadsden right now. I am in the very proactive and positive mode that we're going to win that first match, and we're going to have to play the number 1 seed in the nation right there. Now after that, the biggest chances of us playing a match after that, if we would win those 2, or even if we would win 1 and lose 1, is that we would play either the 4 or 5 seed. So I delegate that to my assistant. My assistant has some advanced information. It's very important that right after every match we start to tell our players about the next opponent that we could face, because that you cannot enjoy this tournament until it's over. And the other thing is, we play at 1 o'clock on Thursday. If we win, we play at 7:30 that night. So it is a quick turnaround.
So, I mean, overall, do you kind of like that feeling that there isn't much time in between matches, that you're just constantly playing, or would you rather have some time to, you know, take some time with your players, talk things over with them, maybe review more, or is it better to just get them right back on the floor and get them going?
It's always hard to say. You just never know with team to team. I like this team's competitive edge. We have 3 or 4 players that play better in the matches than they do in practices. So in that regard, I really like it. This team does an outstanding job of, within a match, figuring out what will and won't work. So I like it from there. My very meticulous, methodical nature, I want about a week to look at everything. But I think it will work out pretty well for our team the way we're set up overall.
Now, again, your first game won't be until Thursday at 1 p.m., but your team's going to leave a little bit early and get up to Casper, kind of get situated. How much of an advantage is that to kind of get them up there and get them used to everything up in Casper?
You know, I think it's real important when you're playing at altitude. You want to make sure you're hydrated. You want to start to see how the ball's going to float around out there. We have won 2 matches at altitude on the road already this year at Yavapai. It's about the same elevation. It's a little bit different. Part of the reason that we left as early as we did is we couldn't find flights on the day before. You know, so it's You just deal with what is out there, and that's exactly what we've been talking about. What pass-fail volleyball is that there's going to be an awful lot of unknown elements, and not all of them are going to be positive, and you just got to find a way to get over them.
Now, final question for you today, leading up to these big games this weekend. And again, fans, you can watch it on NJCAA TV this weekend, so make sure to watch and cheer on the Lady Matadors. With traveling up to northern Idaho, going up to Casper, how do you tell your players, or how do you get them ready for these games, but try to also not let them know how much is at stake? Just treat it as a regular game.
I think you do let them know what's at stake. I don't think this team especially, I would never tell a fib to them. You know, I just want them to know. I want them to. A lot of what we talk about is just the whole thing of if you're happy to be here, we can enjoy the next 3 days, and it'll be real nice.
Right.
I don't think that that's what you do. I think that you can't enjoy it until you finish, and then you enjoy it for the next 30 or 40 years.
Right.
And the one thing I've told a lot of the players is I played in a national championship game back in 1991, and people are still coming up and asking me, "Hey, did you play against Berkeley?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that was me. I was on the bench, but I was in the game." You know? So that's an awful lot more of what we're looking at, is that you're just tunnel vision. We're going to win every game.
All right. Well, Coach, thanks so much for your time. Good luck in Casper, and we look forward to catching up with you next week.
All right. I'll be here.
All right. That was head coach Jason Smith of the District C champion Lady Matador volleyball team. It's time for us to take a break here on the Bullring, but when we come back, it's time to talk Lady Matador basketball with head coach Patrick Cunningham. More of the Bullring to come. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone, into the Bullring. Derek Diesner back with you, and it's time now to talk Matador basketball. And with that, we welcome in head coach Charles Harrell of your Matador men's basketball team. Charles, thanks so much for joining me.
Not a problem, Derek.
Now, your team had a pretty busy week last week, 4 games, and it started with a matinee last Monday right here at the house against Chandler Gilbert. If you could talk a little bit about that game and the victory early in the day.
Yeah, well, we started out with a conference game at home, which is always nice, and we made some shots early. And I thought the Chandler Gilbert game was probably our best defensive game of last week.
Now, with that game, you then head off Tuesday, but then traveled to Scottsdale for another conference game on Wednesday. And as we talked about last week, there wasn't much practice time for this team last week, right?
No, the only day we had practice last week was Tuesday. So.
Wow. All right, well, then let's talk about that game at Scottsdale. You have a practice on Tuesday to kind of get prepared for another conference game, and yet again, your team gets another big victory in ACC/AC play.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good road win. I think anytime you can go on the road and win in the fashion we did by 30 plus, that shows a lot of character with your players, especially having to play just 2 days before.
And then after that, it was quick pack your bags and get ready to travel north to North Idaho. And your team played a pair of games up there. First game against Salish Kootenai, a team that you didn't know much about. What did you think of your team's performance in the opener?
I thought we played really good offensively. I wish our defense had been better. I thought they had the best player on their team that we played against all week in all 4 of the games we played. We had a really hard time defending him. I mean, he had 36 points, DJ Fish, but I thought other than that, it was nice to get E.J. Twyman back in the rotation after he'd been out our first couple of games this week, and to see him shoot the ball well.
Yeah, and going into that game against Salish, you knew that they liked to shoot and that they would put up some points, but it seemed like your offense was up for the challenge.
Yeah, our guys moved the ball really well against them, and I thought played with a lot of confidence.
Now, moving on to Saturday, the 4th and final game for your team this past week, taking on North Idaho College in their home stadium. And that game was an epic one, and one we may look back on later on this season as you guys came back and earned a victory in overtime.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good win. I thought we were obviously very fortunate to win. The fact that we never led the whole second half, and were able to tie it at the end. But I thought our guys showed some resiliency. We were down by 12-13 with, I think, 12 minutes to go in the game, and just kind of stayed the course and made some big plays.
Was there any point during that game that you thought your team was out of that ball game?
No, I never really felt like we were out of it. I was definitely concerned a time or two, but I felt like our guys responded to some challenging situations, and overall I thought our post players played better in the North Idaho game than they had all year. Darius Hamilton and Brandon Lovings, I think, along with Anthony Alston, making 17 of 17 from the free throw line, deserved the credit in us being able to win that game.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive feat, and Anthony Alston really had a great week all of last week for your team in all 4 of his games.
Yeah, he did, and Anthony's really rebounding the ball well for a point guard. I mean, he's had over 6 rebounds a game last week, which is really, really good for a player of his size. So.
Now, getting back to that game against North Idaho, I thought one of the turning points was when your team came out of a timeout. Now, obviously, in timeouts, you always want to fire up your team, get them going, especially when you're behind at the time of that timeout. And you really got into your team during that timeout, but it really seemed to charge them up because they came back out on the floor, got a quick bucket, and you could see the intensity just pick up for the Matadors.
Yeah, I mean, as a coach, you try to figure out, different situations. You can't yell at your guys all the time. Sometimes you have to be positive. I was really rolling the dice, Derek. I didn't know how they'd respond to that, but they're good kids, and they came out and tried a lot harder after that timeout.
Definitely. Well, we look ahead to this week and a couple of games you have this week at Glendale on Wednesday, and then another conference game. You return home right here to the house on Saturday against Eastern Arizona. What do you know about both of these opponents?
Well, I know Glendale has a pretty highly recruited guard that's getting a lot of attention right now, and we're going to have to do a good job defending Ryan Marks is his name, and we're going to have to do a really good job on him if we want to beat them. Glendale is always a tough place to play. They shoot a lot of threes, so you're going to have to guard the three-point line against them. Eastern Arizona, I thought at our jamboree in October had as much talent as anybody in the league. They got upset in a game at Pima last week, but overall, just based off of talent, I think they have as much or more talent than anybody in our conference. So I'm glad we get to play them at home first.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it sounds like it'll be another exciting week of Matador basketball, and we look forward to it. Thanks so much for joining us, Coach, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Derek.
All right, that was head coach of the Matador basketball team, Charles Harrell, here on the Bullring. It's time for us to take a break, but when we come back, it's time to talk Lady Matador basketball with head coach Patrick Cunningham right here on the Bullring. Welcome back, everyone, into the Bullring. Time now to talk Lady Matador basketball, and with that, we welcome in head coach Patrick Cunningham. Patrick, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, always good to be in the Bullring.
Now, yes, last week your team had a pair of games, starting with a matinee on Monday on Veterans Day, taking on Chandler Gilbert, and they really took you guys all the way down to the wire, but you come out with an overtime victory.
Tell you what, man, Chandler Gilbert, they're like the best 0-0 team in the country right now. They played Central. It was 44-44 at half, the game after ours. So, I mean, they shoot the ball well. They're a bunch of sophomores. They're just not overly talented, but, they got a lot of chemistry, and they gave us everything we could handle, and we were lucky to survive.
What does a win like that do for your team this early in the season, to know that they may have bent, but they didn't break, and they came away with a victory?
Yeah, I mean, it gives us a chance to explain to them how every single game in the ACC counts. I mean, you can't let up on anybody, and and even the Division II teams are all battling for playoff spots, and there's tiebreakers. There's all kinds of things involved with beating a team that's going to be above you in the standings, and Chandler knew that, and they came out and they were ready to play, and our guys got to understand it. Every game is the most important game.
Then your team head off on Tuesday and then another game on Wednesday when you travel to Scottsdale. And you guys got a very impressive victory on the road against another quality ACC-AC opponent.
Yeah, I mean, Scottsdale's a kind of a tough place to play. You got to generate some energy. And, again, you have a big crowd and a big exciting game on Monday, and then you come back and you're playing in a watch the paint dry type of game. It's tough to generate, energy there. And we struggled a little bit in the first half, but I thought the defensive effort was consistent in both halves, and we got the offense rolling, and we go through the week 2-0 like we should, and it just gave us a little time off here over the weekend.
Yeah, and that had to be nice. Have some practice time as well as some time off, and now you'll next be in action on Wednesday when you travel to Glendale. What do you know about the Gauchos this season?
I mean, likely having the Division II Player of the Week. I had a kid that played real well last week. They beat Phoenix by 3, and they beat Scottsdale as well. So, again, a tough place to go play. You got to generate some energy. Not a big crowd. They've always played us pretty well. They're again another team that's not quite as athletic, but they're very physical. And and they're going to try to just try to manhandle us as best they can, and historically we've struggled with them at times, and we got to come out and we have to be ready to go, and hopefully we'll have that a little time off will have helped us.
And then Saturday, you guys return home to the house to host Eastern Arizona. What do you know about them?
Yeah, Eastern, they're 5-0 right now, so they're flying high. They've had a good start to the season. They're very athletic. They got 2 kids that can really score the ball that are both returners. And so we'll have our hands full, but we're looking forward to the week, and hopefully we'll come away with a couple of victories and kind of keep ourselves rolling.
All right. Well, Coach, thanks so much for your time. We'll catch up with you next week.
No worries.
Good luck to your squad this week.
All right, we'll be back.
All right. That was head coach Patrick Cunningham of the Lady Matador basketball team. It's time for us to take a break. We'll be back with more of the Bullring right after this. Welcome back, everyone, into the Bullring. Well, that wraps up our show today. A couple of quick reminders for you that if you're looking to watch or tune in to this week's Lady Matador volleyball matches in Casper, Wyoming, you can log on to NJCAA.org and check out NJCAA TV for live coverage of all tournament games. Also, a quick reminder to get your Fisher Automotive El Toro Bowl tickets right now. All seats are reserved and tickets cost just $13. You can get tickets by logging on to eltorobowl.com, visiting the Caballeros de Yuma office, or stopping by the AWC Athletics office. A big thank you to all of our coaches who came on and joined us today here on the Bullring. Head coach Tom Minnick of the Matador football team, Jason Smith of the Lady Matador volleyball team, Patrick Cunningham of the Lady Matador basketball team, and Charles Harrell of the Matador basketball team. Also, a big thank you to our AWC production crew for all the great work that they do. I'm Derek Diesner saying so long. We'll see you next week for the Bullring.